Welcome to Footy Kickin Good. We are here with our Richmond episode of the pod. Introducing first our main man who's always here. The only person who still believes Andrew Cracker's mark was better than Walker's in 2011.
It's because it was.
Michael Flynn.
It clearly was.
The only person.
Yeah.
Now, Michael,
You gotta love the fan voting. But before we get stuck into it, I better introduce the man sitting next to me, Christopher Paduano, who at one point in time was he competed in the AFL longest kick competition. Is that right?
I did.
And who was the player that was running the competition?
Koch was hosting on the
Trent
day.
Cochin. How'd you go?
My first kick was good. First kick, I was in runners. I was the only one in runners, and Koch offered to lend me some footy boots.
Yeah.
I got 57 the first kick, and then...
Is that meters?
Yeah, let's just ignore the second kick because I didn't do too well. So.
57's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, I know. What did the winner get?
I think it was only in the low 60s. I don't think it was a big kick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The thing is, look, as much as it pains me to say, this guy has an absolute cannon of a right boot. Left boot we won't talk about, but
Very nice of you to say. Let's just focus on the right foot.
I've seen him launch some like well over 60 metres, so a bit stiff, but next time wear the footy boots, I reckon.
Yeah.
That's good, Padgy. Does it still haunt you a little bit that you weren't able to get over the line?
No, I would have ended up against that I don't even remember what his name was. Yeah. Yeah. Nah, I'm quite happy with that was my claim to fame was that day.
All right, so let's go through the ins and outs of this team. A lot of changes, I guess. We got the big outs, I guess, in Baker, Bolton, Graham, Rioli, Martin. I mean, that's stacked. It's a lot of talent. Yeah.
How many flags between them? You probably don't know.
I want to know off the top of my head.
Chris knows.
There's a lot of two-time premiership players in that.
Yeah.
That we've lost, and
obviously,
and Rioli was the youngest player in 2017. So he's sort of taken that. He'll like he's not the last one that's got three, but he'll now probably be playing for another club before when he finishes.
But you're kind of in this rebuilding stage, and it's sort of just like it's. I mean, are you happy with the direction the club's taking? Like a lot of clubs aren't willing to pull the trigger, I guess, and say, hey, we're going to rebuild and we're going to go through the draft. A lot of people try to top up and keep competing and then obviously end up fizzling out. You guys have taken a forward approach, I guess.
I think we tried to trade our way out of it, and that's how we ended up with Hopper and Taranto and Kazitsky. I think it was pretty clear very early on that wasn't going to work for us. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at. Like, at the end of the day, we want to be playing for flags. So I don't mind. It's brave. It's definitely brave, but that's the advantage you get out of having a new coach as well. Cause his head's not on the chopping block yet. So
that's true. They've really gone like scorched earth. Cause I feel like North Melbourne, for a few years were like sort of in between rebuild and not, but they were still finishing down the bottom. And then they were after one of the seasons, I think they got rid of everyone. Like it was like they had like at least like 10 to 15 players delisted or traded or whatever. And it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain.
Yeah.
But obviously I think Richmond have the advantage over a team like North in the sense that I feel like even the fans will accept the fact. So they've got the three flags. So I think the fans are willing to accept the project that they're doing. But as well as the fact that they have so many members that from a commercial standpoint, I still feel like they'll do reasonably well, even if they are finishing in the bottom four.
Yeah.
Which obviously North struggled to get, people through the gates the last few years. Whereas I don't think Richmond will have as much of a problem.
That kind of an issue.
Yeah.
Also, like in terms of their draft crop, like you haven't seen a good draft crop since the expansion teams have come into play. So like what they've done in terms of converting their picks into multiple picks, I guess.
And they've they've got multiple picks in the first round next year as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
North Melbourne's first rounder.
Yeah, which you'd expect to probably, which it'll be in the top 5 to 10.
Yeah,
think, so
you'd think. Yeah,
at least.
Yeah, I'd expect a top 5 pick out of it, which is an awesome pick. And also, the other part about it is it's well timed in terms of the Tasmanian team coming in. Yeah. So, now's the chance to rebuild. I wouldn't want to be rebuilding in a couple of years.
Well, that's the sort of worry as a Collingwood supporter is we're topping up now for to do what Richmond's probably going to do in the next. We'll probably be doing it in 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to coincide with a compromised draft. So it's all about timing in this game.
I remember when GWS first started, obviously they were getting pumped, early on, but they all had a belief in the group that in a couple of years we're going to be spanking these teams, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the same thing will kind of go through Richmond.
I think as well, Richmond drafting a lot of blokes that played together in juniors, which is that's always a big deal. I feel
a lot of talent there. I really just love the targeting the key position players because I feel like not only that, but they've also got older players on their list. So, your Vostons, your Lynches, your Tarantos, Hoppers, whereas North have kind of had to spend an extra year and grab those kind of players. Where Richmond's already got them.
North don't really have, I know, Luke McDonald's lost the captaincy going into this year. It's they don't have the same level of leaders around the club.
Yeah, agree.
So,
but it'll be interesting to come. Which leads us to our first topic, the draftees. So we know there's a whole bunch of draftees, a lot of big names, a lot of expectation, I guess. I mean, but who do you think slots into round one?
By the way, Jamie's our resident draft guy. He knows, he could tell you each draftee's middle name, their star sign.
I don't know.
He's
as
across
far as that.
So we tend to defer to him.
To me,
for
what about
for draft sort of stuff, but obviously.
Yeah, Pat is our Richmond guy. Have you got your eye on anyone that you think's a real standout, I guess, other than the obvious?
Look, I was really keen to see Smiley or Smilly, however people want to say it. I was really keen to see him play. It looks like he might have a delayed start.
I think he'll be touch and go for round one.
But Layla is the player that I know he's the obvious one. But he just looks like the kind of player that we're probably lacking. I know the last couple of years we've been sort of trying to find guys to sort of top up the midfield because we've been losing them at the same rate that we've been gaining them. So there is a spot there for him, which is is awesome.
Well, because when you drafted him, he was really, I wouldn't say he was the best player in the draft, but I would say that he's had the most potential in terms of being that kind of Rayner, Zach Bailey, that X factor, half forward, kick goal. I mean, little Dusty
those types of players seem to frequently go pick one.
Yeah. And on top of that, I hear Richmond's playing him straight in the middle, guts, which is great because I think that's going to give his development a little bit hot.
It'll accelerate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Smiley, you mentioned, I honestly think he could have gone pick 2.
Well, that was the benefit of Richmond in this draft was I felt I think it was the first 7 picks were any one of them could be pick 1.
Yeah.
And having 2 of them essentially means you've got picks 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly.
So
190 odd centimeters. The way this guy breaks tackles, I know it was at a junior level, but if he develops that into AFL level, he's just a big body. I honestly would have him as a smoky or maybe for a rising star even if he can get his body right. I think both of those boys possibly round 1. Obviously, Smiley, we mentioned, he's got the little hamstring.
Yeah.
The other one I've got is Luke Traynor.
Yeah,
defender. Who I thought again. Start of last year, he was top 4 calculations. That's how highly they rated him. And obviously, Bolts is going to be missing the first 4 games, which isn't great. But I think that maybe slots in.
I think because he's been training as a defender.
As well,
So I think that'll be...
Which I think is good for
that'll
him.
be some coverage for Bolter.
I liked Cosy at the Hawks, but he just had a few mistakes in him, I guess. But I feel like... take away the goal kicking aspect of it. I feel like maybe you put him under a little bit less pressure. Great mark. He was actually great as a pinch ruckman as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the club's hoping that he'll show a bit more effort. I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
If he's not kicking goals, that's fine, but he probably needed to do a little bit more around the ground.
Yep.
So, even just be a little bit more defensive.
Yeah. And the other one I had that possibly might be in round 1 calculations is Harry Armstrong, the forward. So I don't know if you just want to blood some games into him, see if he can scrape in a goal basically a game. But he looks the goods.
Who's the draftee that's coming off an ACL?
I think it's Taj Hodden.
Houghton. Yeah. He was also highly touted until he got injured. So I think that's the advantage that Richmond have is it's obviously a long-term strategy. So you can afford to take guys and know you're not getting anything in the short term, but like they're a long-term prospect.
Yeah, back to like Elijah Holland was supposed to go pick 3 and end up slipping to pick 7.
Yeah.
You know, and you see how good, he was looking last year as well. So probably something similar happening there.
Yeah.
So next point, how long do you think this Richmond rebuild would take? That's the question. Like, how long can you be competitive? Because I feel like
they always go longer than you think.
Yeah,
that's what. Besides Hawthorn,
some teams have been able to switch it around in 4 years.
But the difference is, so like teams are sort of kind of do rebuilds. Like I think Collingwood, within a year we're back in like contention and Hawks, but they're not the same sort of rebuilds because they still have like a gun experienced core. It's like they've just sort of like doing like a hybrid almost. Like you've got good middle-aged players and young players and whatnot. Yeah, I feel like North, West Coast, Richmond are doing like legitimate rebuilds. Where they're playing young kids in the side every week.
I don't know. I'm really positive on the Tigers in terms of their where they're going.
I'd like to see them play a few games and judge sort of like
how good they actually are.
How far behind they actually are.
Yeah.
That would be... Yeah, sorry.
No.
Yeah.
I definitely... I think finals by 2029 is like... Because that's 4 seasons. 4 seasons of, so I wouldn't say that we wouldn't be competitive before then, but we won't play a final till then. And then I'd hope that we're winning finals probably by the year after.
Well, how many years has it been for West Coast and North at this stage? I feel like North's at least six plus.
Yeah.
West Coast probably 4.
The problem with some of those teams is that they kind of didn't realise that they needed to rebuild as early as Richmond has.
I think the difference is Richmond could have, let's say they kept all their players that they've lost, Rioli and these guys, everyone fit on the park.
Yeah.
They'd be potentially even going towards a top 8 position with all of those guys, Prestia fit, Lynch fit. We're saying the whole list is fit.
Yeah.
But they've traded them while they still have value. Yeah. Whereas West Coast and North missed the boat. Like especially West Coast, they held on to guys for longer than they should have when they had value.
Yeah.
I think they were really pushing hard for that second premiership. And then they had a bunch of like older guys either delisted or retire and got nothing for them.
What they got is a pick 6 for Daniel Rioli.
Yeah, which is massive overs, I think. Yeah. So
they played credit to their team.
And they got a good deal for Bolton as well from Freo. So that's...
Yeah, well, they cashed in. I think they made the right moves, to be honest with you, as well. I don't think they're going to be as heavily missed, when this team is coming into their peak, I guess.
Yeah.
Next one. So, look, we've been talking about the draftees a lot. Who do you think's going to have the best career?
Oh,
I feel like the big story is just really around the draftees and like what they're going to produce because you very much know that they're the future.
Historically, the pick 1 is probably not the guy that will have the best career. I think has a pick 1 ever won a Brownlow? I don't think there has been.
I don't think so, off the top of my head.
Yeah, he'd be the only one. Yeah. But there might be more. Fact check me.
Yeah.
But the point being, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Smiley's the best of the whole group. But
I think what it depends on their personalities, which will come out in the next couple of years. You look at a guy like Cochin, who won an asterisk Brownlow.
Yeah,
but the guy when he came on looked like he was going to be the next Dustin Martin. Yeah, before Dusty, and then Dustin Martin came around. So it was like, I have to be someone else.
Yeah. And
so he changed his whole career to be something more important to the team than what he could have been. Because if you watch footage of him when he was 21, 22, he was X factor. He was kicking goals, stopped doing that eventually. Like he was kicking 20 goals a year and getting tons of the ball, and then he changed his whole game. So whether or not one of these guys is a future captain, it might mean that they change the way that they play, and they might not end up being the player that, you know, gets all the accolades, but they might be a guy that plays in a bunch of premierships.
Yeah.
That's what I hope
No,
anyway.
right. With Lawler in particular, like I've seen a few interviews with him, and he does. I think his personality is a big reason why he went number one. I think they do see him as a potential future captain.
Well, it's interesting the fact that I think a lot more goes into players like personality and temperament.
Yeah.
When they're being like interviewed by clubs before the draft, because a lot of players there was a few players in the draft that said they did interviews with GWS with who's their coach Kingsley.
Yeah.
And they really like put them under fire. And the questions were like, you know, if you with a friend that was like, and they did something illegal, would you dob them in? You know, it was that sort of stuff. It was like really difficult lines of questioning. So I think they're really like big on that sort of stuff.
We also know of a person that when back in the GWS days when there was there was multiple picks, it was actually discussed amongst the players who wanted to go pick one. And it was actually the guy that ended up going pick two that said, I don't want to be pick one. I don't want I don't want the criticism. I don't want the focus. Because being pick one, you get a pay increase immediately, but you then have to have all these, interviews straight away, and the pressure's on immediately from when you first drafted.
A lot more pressure. I feel like the expansion teams, you can maybe get away with it because you almost got like a top three.
Yeah.
That go out. But I think Lawler, from what I've seen, he's the kind of personality who's going to accept it and, not so much have a chip on his shoulder, but, he can put his head down and do the work at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Should be really good for that side.
So is I don't know if we got an answer from you, Jamie. Who do you think will be the best? I'm
gonna go Smiley. I think like he's just capable of like potentially winning a Brownlow and does individual accolades.
Can you see one of the key position guys being like a gun, Coleman medalist?
I look at Harry Armstrong and I feel like he'd be a great second fiddle.
Yeah, he's not really a power forward for me, but he looks really nice.
But he's got sort of that Jack Gunston model, you know what I mean? Where it's sort of like you got your buddy in your rough head who are doing it and he's just pipping in goals and like no one noticing how actually influential he is, which I think he can do the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know with Lawler, to be honest with you. Like I don't see him as like a big ball magnet kind of big numbers.
Yeah.
But I think his influence is going to be really high. So he could even potentially turn into like a Petrarca kind of type.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. So individual accolades. Do we see Tigers getting much? So let's start with the Brownlow. Anybody in contention? You don't think Taranto could? Because just like...
I think... so he was the name that I had written down.
Yeah.
I think he's capable of getting close to 20 votes.
Okay.
And I think all things considered, if the whole list is fit and firing, he's the guy that I would bank to be, the best player in the side these days.
Do you know of has someone ever won the Brownlow from finishing like on one of the bottom teams of the ladder?
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah,
it's in yesteryear. That's why like
Bulldogs have heaps.
Bulldogs and St Kilda and these teams, South Melbourne have heaps of Brownlow medalists because one gun can stand out in an average side. I mean, Gary Ablett won one for Gold Coast. But yeah, it
doesn't happen as often anymore.
Yeah, it's hard
because usually the three votes go to the winner.
Well, sometimes like I've noticed in the Brownlow recent years, a guy will have like a crazy stat game, but they get smashed and they won't poll at all.
Yeah.
Or they won't give them the three. It's almost like the umpires are keeping it in the back of their mind.
Whereas Ablett, when he was at Gold Coast, he got 3 votes in a game. They lost by 100 points. Like
he was pretty
on fire.
Yeah.
Coleman medal. Give anyone a chance. I did have in our first episode Smokey as Tom Lynch.
Yeah, I mean he's the only one.
Yeah.
It'd be a long shot.
Trying to think, there's no one else. Just it really could have to be Tom.
It's him or bust.
So Tom, and he could just constantly be the main target down there. I mean, if you start getting a little bit desperate, to score, he's probably the first avenue. That
Jack Riewoldt won Coleman's playing in a pretty average side.
Yeah, that's true as well.
But I think I wouldn't be banking on Lynch to play enough games.
He has to stay fit. That's the big thing.
Yeah,
that's been the
absolutely.
problem. Yeah.
All Australians.
I think Floston.
Yeah.
He's regardless of how Richmond's going, he seems to be the guy.
He missed last year, right?
Yeah, and I thought he was stiff.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Did he make the squad? He might have.
I think he made the 40, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Taranto's always a chance. Just because, like, he kicks goals as well.
He is a chance.
I have a smoky for the All-Australian team, which is Tom Brown.
Okay,
I think if he goes to another level and he plays in a position like if he's a half-back or half-forward, I think he stands out because his kicking is so elite.
Yeah.
But it'd be a long shot, but he's my smoky, I'd say.
All right, nice. Let's look at the Rising Star Award. I know we've talked about the draftees quite a bit already, but who do you think? Like, do you think there's a Richmond draftee that's capable of winning it this year, or do you think they might fall short? Or who do you think will be the best prospect at least?
I think it's a good year to. It's a very high chance that Richmond will win a Rising Star based on the fact that we've got so many young players.
Yeah,
and it's not one of those things where they don't really they can't really take votes off each other either. Yeah. So as long as they have good seasons, they can all of them all can poll really well.
Nominated,
so.
yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to see who gets the first Rising Star nomination for Richmond.
That's a good.
That would be.
It won't be round one.
There'll be one round 0, and then round 1. It'll be tough.
I think to be honest, if I was a betting man, I'd say Layla for Richmond. Yeah. I'd say he's the hope. I'd say for the Rising Star to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think
he'll be the first nom as well.
I like Smiley, but I feel like that little hamstring issue kind of has made me think that maybe they'll look after and manage him a little bit throughout the year. Yeah, because you just don't want these guys breaking down so early in their careers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I could see Lawler playing every game basically.
I think there is a very, very high likelihood that Richmond Carlton, with Jagger Smith in the same game as the rest of them, that's probably going to be. There's a very high chance that the nominations coming out of that match.
See, if Carlton were fair sports, they would take Paddy Cripps out of the midfield and just let the young bucks go at it.
Just play him up forward. All the young boys.
Let Jagger Smith play head to head on
Jagger.
Layla.
The Hollands boys, put him in there.
Come on.
What's Cripps done lately? Honestly,
Walsh might just rested. Round 1, get your body right.
Nah, Cripps is thinking another 3 votes coming up. Mate, they could rest Cripps. He'll probably still get the 3.
I thought he was out there.
All right, guys. Breakout year or underrated player? I'll let
Chris start off with this one.
Look, there's a couple of players that have been there for a while that you kind of hope. We've got guys like Steely Green and Flynn mentioned before, Brown. These guys that they're already probably performing more than we would have hoped that they'd need to at the start of their career. They're already being relied upon heavily. Mm-hmm. But I mean, can you have a guy that's been around for a couple of years? Like, can Taranto have a breakout year? Like, I think he's already broken out. But
has he got a All Australian? I think he got one
probably
at Giants.
I would be surprised if he had it.
Yeah, probably at the Giants. But look, I'm still hoping that Jack Ross can have a good year. A lot of people have given up on him completely.
He's a bit of a whipping boy.
Yeah, he cops it a fair bit. He's definitely very talented.
I know, and you can put this down. I know who's breaking out this year.
What do you tell me?
Ryan Mansell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a good call.
He will be the guy. I'm positive of this. He will be the guy by the end of the year. People will be like, this guy's a pretty good player. Because he doesn't have any profile yet.
Yeah.
Like maybe with Richmond supporters, wider AFL no. But everything I've seen from like Richmond's like training and intra-club clips.
Yeah, he's training.
He looks like the guy that's like taken on the responsibility to be like, a decent midfielder.
Yeah.
I think I saw a clip of him at training where he was like pretty much punching on with one of his teammates, and I was like, yeah, I love it.
There's been a few punch-ons in the intros. What's going on there?
You know what? As fans, I like it because I'm like, these guys care so much.
I feel, for me, when I see it, I'm just like, it's a bit of heat in the locker room that's kind of just trailed out onto the field.
Yeah, why hasn't anyone bashed Ginnivan yet?
Ginnivan's well loved in the Hawthorn community.
Yeah. But so I had a couple of other ones that I was just going to suggest as well. I think Sam Banks will be a guy that will potentially move into Daniel Rioli's spot.
Yeah.
I think he's been slated to be like a decent half-back player, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a full season in the half-back line.
Oh, definitely. You already mentioned my guy, which was Tom Brown, who I think is
I love him.
He's looking great.
Yeah.
Played 18 games last year. I just think like he's just exactly what you need. It might be a bit of a tougher year for him down back.
Yeah.
But I think that's only going to help him be better in long term, I guess.
A friend of mine and Chris's, before I even knew who Tom Brown was, said to me, "This guy's a 200-game player," and I thought, here we go. Here we go. I've never even heard of him. And then I saw him play and I was like, oh, you know what? He's probably pretty right.
Yeah. Oh, look, the other thing as well is that this does feel a little bit different to other seasons. There was we've Richmond had a tendency back in the day where we had guys that were young that were just getting beat up every single week. Some of our defenders, and I remember watching young Alex Rance just. Like, it was just demoralising. It wasn't good for his confidence.
What about Jaden Post?
Yeah, he's another one. Like, we had a bunch.
I missed that era of Richmond.
yeah. But that was what we had to do to sort of fix that was we had to get in. We had Troy Chaplin come in, and guys like that actually took. Started taking some of the better players to take that pressure off them. We're not completely, like we still have Broad. We still have. We mentioned him just before. Loston, Broad, and
Short.
No, what's his name? Bolter. Who obviously is going to miss a little bit of the footy, a little bit of footy at the start of the year. But like those guys, they're still going to be taking the best players a lot of the time.
Gibkiss to come back as well.
Yeah. Gibkiss is he's definitely going to slot straight back in as soon as he can get
the more
fit.
names you list, the more I'm worried about my prediction of Richmond going through the season winless. I'm going, there's more out there than I thought.
As a Richmond supporter heading in, like, what do you want to see this year, Padge? So, because a lot of people have got him, no one really gives him much of a chance, I guess, but like, there's got to be some positive element you're kind of looking for.
Oh, I think this year's just to see. It's about trying to get some notice in the highlights reels. That's about it.
Yeah.
Like see if you can get some guys get nominated for goal of the year.
So like you've gone to the footy for the last, you've gone forever, but I'm saying the last sort of 5 years, you would go to the footy with the expectation of seeing a Richmond win. There'll be a lot of games that you go to this year where there'll be no expectations to win. If it's a game against Brisbane or whoever, right? What do you go if you go to a game thinking we're definitely going to lose this? What are you looking to see? Like, what's the why go? Essentially,
yeah. Look, an easy answer was to what we did for the last almost 3 decades was we had Matthew Richardson, who then overlapped with Jack Rewalt, and the two of those guys, you went to watch them play. Just even if we were crap, you'd go and watch them play, see if they kick the bag.
Yeah.
We don't have that really at the moment, especially anyone that's young like that. So now you're just kind of going to watch who's going to get a really good run out of the center square, who's going to lay a really nice tackle, who's shows a bit of speed. Like it's just, as I said, sort of who's going to. You want to see a good highlights package, and you want to see some rising star nominations. That's about. If we can get some of that down, then you're sort of looking towards the future.
Is there an element of like, we owe the club for like what they accomplished where like, now that we're going through a leaner period, we should be there to support them because of how much they've given us?
I definitely have always had that mentality.
Yeah.
And like I've always been going to games like ever since I was started. I've always been going.
You went to the Richmond Geelong game at Marvel, did you not?
Yes, the 156-point loss.
Yeah, 2007?
7.
Yeah, when Geelong won the flag.
We sort of put them in form and then they just ran and won the next, 3 of the next 5. I go to games regardless. To be honest, I'm a bit weird. I like to go to games when it's not as crowded. I like going to games when I can just actually get a good seat and enjoy it.
Sometimes it's a bit of a sensory overload when it's not 85,000 at the G.
Oh, you struggle to get a ticket, and then the whole time you're sitting there and you're panicking. It's nice to sometimes go and watch a game and just enjoy.
I'll tell you what, like an early Saturday game against like a Gold Coast, when you can drive into the G and get a park, that's top tier.
Yeah. No, so I've given a long answer, but honestly, it's just about seeing the players. You don't want to see a guy trying to necessarily fill a spot when he first gets there and become, part of the furniture. You want a guy to show off a little bit, and show what he can do, and then settle into a spot. And then you sort of know what he's got in his arsenal. But you need.
Do you feel like some of the young guys at Richmond that are not last year's draftees, like we're talking early 20s, do you think they're feeling the heat of like, I don't want these young blokes taking my spot?
Big time. I think a guy like Sonsi, a couple of the guys like that they've had a couple of years, and now they're going to have guys that are going to probably pinch their spot.
Well, because the thing is, right, a guy like Sonsi, let's say, he'll have the pre-seasons under the belt, but what he can do in footy is nothing compared to what like a Layla can do, essentially talent-wise. So it's like they'd definitely be feeling that pinch to improve.
Definitely a different, definitely a different prospect going into the season for those boys. Also, sky's the limit for them. He's probably the kind of guy that really needs to put in a big season.
Yeah, he'd be on the chopping block, I'd say. Yeah.
No, 100%. I think that's a good summary of the ep. Thanks, boys, for coming out.
No worries.
Good insight into Richmond. Good luck to your boys this year as well.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
Tigers.
Go the Mighty Tigers.
All excited to see how the young boys go.
Yeah.
Cheers for watching, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Cheers.
Thanks, boys.